Mckenna retiring from politics creates possible opening for Mark Carney. Which man can we replace this woman with, right? Welcome to the feminist government of Justin Trudeau. It's 50-50-ish. Let's just create a minister of the middle class and then just never ask her to do anything. Okay. It's 50-50, right? I know that she doesn't do anything, but 50-50. Right. Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna has decided not to seek re-election. Her surprise decision opens up some prime political real estate that could become a launching pad for former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, should he decide to run for the Liberals in the next election. What unbelievable crystal ball you have there, CTV News. McKenna has held the Ottawa Centre, a riding that encompasses Parliament Hill, since 2015 when she wrestled it away from the New Democrats. Carney has not committed to running, but promised in April during his political debut at the Liberals Party's virtual convention to do what he can to support the party. She says she wants to spend more time with her 3 children and devote her professional energies to the fight against climate change. Like many Canadians living through COVID-19 over a very long year, maybe step back and reflect on what matters to me most. And it's 2 things: my kids and climate change. Not her husband? Not her journalist husband? Things were rocky there, weren't they? Just to remember Catherine McKenna and her greatest hits, we'll look back when she accidentally said the quiet part out loud. And this is the modus operandi of the Liberal government. You just repeat it. Say it over and over. Say it louder, right? And then people will totally believe you. Thank you for this clip, Catherine McKenna. Here we go.
So I actually gave them some real advice. I said that if you actually say it louder, we've learned in the House of Commons, if you repeat it, if you say it louder, if that is your talking point, people will totally believe it. So just go it. I actually gave them some real.
What an awful, awful, terrible representative. This is like somebody who's been in office. This wasn't even a scandal enough to get this person out of office. In Canada, if you say that, yeah, no, we don't really care about the reality of things, we'll just repeat our talking point, say it over and over again, people will totally believe you. Yeah, that's not a scandal in Canada. Everybody's like, yeah, we know. It's true. It's true. Right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Everybody fell hook, line, and sinker for that. What about the infrastructure money? What about the missing infrastructure money? Budget Office says Liberal spending estimates short by $2.5 billion on infrastructure. So there's 20 million missing projects, or $2.5 billion. The Parliamentary Budget Watchdog says it can't find billions in new infrastructure spending, that it's supposed to be linked, or supposed to be in key federal spending projections released earlier this month. The main spending estimates for the next 12 months were supposed to include $8 billion in new infrastructure spending, but in a report this morning from Parliamentary Budget Officer John Dennis Franchette, says the document only shows $5.5 billion in infrastructure allocations. The report lists multiple reasons for the missing $2.5 billion, including that the Liberals may defer some intended spending to future years. So it goes through. This is actually a shorter article. There was another article I read that went through like. We gave it to they said that they gave the money to the provinces, and the provinces maybe didn't spend it on infrastructure, but spend it on their general budget, which could happen. Like even healthcare money given from the feds gets reallocated when it hits the province. But I'm still very concerned about the fact that we don't have a good answer on this, and it just seems like, it's water under the bridge, right? 2019, 2020, 2017. This one's 2017. Right? So it's like a long history of missing infrastructure projects. Blacklock's reporter, this one's from 2020, audit of $187 billion worth of liberal infrastructure spending finds 20,000 missing projects. And that accounts for a lot of money, and I can't remember exactly how much money that was. But anyway, this is Blacklock's reporter through Rebel News. Parliament's Budget Office can find no evidence of 20,000 projects subsidized with billions in federal tax dollars. Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna would not document where the funds were spent, the Commons Government Operations Committee was told. Budget Officer Yves Giroux said he could find no records of more than 1/3 of the projects started or completed, a total of 20,000 projects. When asked, we've asked the department and have been able to find information for 33,000 of these projects, said Giroux. We have not been able to see a list that includes all of the 52 or 53,000 projects, only 33,000 of these projects. Budget Officer Giroux said he could find no records on more than 1/3 of projects started or completed, a total of 20,000. So you know who's not going to have to answer questions about that during the next election cycle? The person who's responsible for it, right? So where did those things go? I don't know. And I think that the 2017 news wasn't isn't the full story, right? Like this is 2017. This is the beginning of the terrible oversight of our infrastructure money. And to read interviews, I read through some interviews peppered through, and they were talking about social infrastructure. We need to spend money on social infrastructure, and then she talked about how it was important to fund Black Lives Matter and Indigenous people, and to talk about racialized Canadians. And then she said, not that that's our forefront, but when talking about Indigenous Canadians or racialized Canadians, we have to make sure blah blah blah. And I was like, this whole thing, like the infrastructure, it shouldn't be about race. It shouldn't be anything to do with race. There are special initiatives, right? Like the First Nations getting clean drinking water to First Nations communities. That's a special initiative that's outside of the infrastructure. If that's based on race, I think it's more based on location. Like if I was up there, probably I would get access to the water, the tap water, once it was available, right? But maybe not in today's Canada. Maybe not. They'd be like, oh, you're a little bit too, I don't know. We're not going to give you this. You have to boil your water for whatever because you're obviously an oppressor. In today's Canada, this is not a wild and crazy thought. Honestly, there's a time when I wouldn't have even, like, my mind wouldn't have gone down that track, right? Because I would think that it's not likely, or that people wouldn't be that vicious. But I think this government would be that vicious. Yes, I think they would be. I don't think the people would be, but I think the government would be, and I think that government workers would be, and I think that guidelines around use would be specifically that vicious. Like, absolutely, yes, I do. I think these people are evil, and I think they're using absolutely everything they can to divide Canadians, and I think it's wrong what they're doing. Anyway, the 2017 article just is listing the beginning. The 2020 article, this is from June 3rd, 2020, so that's even last year. Right? And do we have reasonable answers for this? This is the article I was talking about, the case of the missing infrastructure money. It's a 3-minute read. This is from 2019 as well. Right? So this is a long pattern, and this is the one where they're talking about we gave it to the provinces. And here, I'll get the quote. Hold on. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just want to add color to the idea of the provinces and the federal government losing money on infrastructure. But this is 2019, and I don't think that it explains away 20,000 missing projects. I don't think that this exonerates Catherine McKenna, and I don't think this is a good enough explanation for where the money is, right? Okay, just to be very clear. Okay, in 2016, Finance Minister Bill Morneau ushered in what the Liberal government now calls the Investing in Canada Plan, a scheme to spend $188 billion on infrastructure over 12 years. To qualify for more funds from this program, provinces and municipalities were required to pony up a chunk of money themselves. According to the PBO, for the first 2 years of the program, the municipalities played fair. The 5 cities it looked at, Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary, and Ottawa, not only paid their share of infrastructure money, but in some cases spent more. For the provinces, however, the story was very different. The PBO calculates the provinces ended up spending $3.8 billion less on infrastructure between 2016 and 2018 than they would have had there been no federal program. And they spent $5.4 billion less than PBO calculates they should have if they were serious about meeting the terms of the federal infrastructure scheme, the $188 billion. How exactly this happened is not clear. The PBO says the provinces may have simply used the federal money to displace their own spending, or they may have compensated for their participation in jointly funded projects by postponing or canceling others that were their sole responsibility. In any case, PBO says the results should come as no surprise. Even as the federal government was publicly ramping up its planned infrastructure spending, the provinces were equally publicly scaling back theirs. Right, but there's a problem with this, though, and I think the problem was summed up by Yves Giroux, I think the PBO parliamentary budget officer guy. He's interviewed a lot, and he basically said, like, I just like receipts for everything. I just like to follow, like, the money left federal and went here, and then where to go. Is there a project or is there no project? If there's no project, the money should be there. If it's not there, what did that money go? Like, sorry, this is money. But, right, where did the money go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Anybody got an answer to that? Isn't there somebody who's accountable? And the frustrating part is, here's the accountability aspect of this. Do you remember the WE documents? The government filibustered. The minority government filibustered and said, we're not giving over these WE documents. It's not happening. Zero chance it's happening. There's a dog and pony show. Pierre Poilievre raked the Wee brothers over the coals, and there's all sorts of stuff that happened, and blah 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 blah. But ultimately, we didn't get any kind of answers, right? We didn't get any kind of answers. It was just like the Jody Wilson-Raybould situation where she was saying, things happened, wink, wink, wink. People overstepped the line of legal, wink, wink, wink. I can't be more explicit than this, wink, wink, wink. And then everybody was like, oh, well, it doesn't matter that she got shuffled out of cabinet, and then SNC-Lavalin got a deferred prosecution agreement. This Liberal government doesn't care about the rules of Canada, right? The traditional rules of Canada as a Canadian country. They're much more interested in defining Canada as a UN province, I guess, a UN communist attaché, right? I'm not exactly sure what Canada is yet. We're in a transitionary period at this point in time because it's been 15 months. Our laws aren't valid. People have there's COVID bylaws that are more. You get 200 mounted police officers if you dare to open your restaurant. But if you fire a gun into a child's birthday party, well, that's just the unfortunate byproduct of living in a big city there, guys. So, right? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's going on, right? It's very, very, very scary. So the Liberal government doesn't want to be held accountable. And our system is suspended, right? And I think that we're going to see this played out with this next story. The Speaker of the House is being taken to court by the government to hide the documents related to the Winnipeg lab leak. And this is a big deal because this is a pattern with this government. If the Harper government had done half of this stuff, they would have been tossed on their ear and the press would have been screaming for it. And nobody is talking about anything to do with this government that is incompetent and inept, right? They got rid of our PPE. Patty Haydu is not a doctor or a medical professional in any capacity, and she's the health minister. The Saijan has committed, he turned a blind eye to sexual assaults that were in the mandate letter, like clean up the forces, and he hasn't done that. 6 years on the job, and he's still in the job, incompetent, inept, unable to do anything, right? So, like, we're at a point where it seems like this government is installed and it doesn't matter how terrible they are. In fact, the worse they are, so long as they're listening to Justin Trudeau, the worse they are, the more secure their job, right? Like Bill Blair openly lying to people about gun owners while gun crime surges in Toronto and they're going after like hunters. It seems, well, I mean, you know my thoughts on that. But anyway, this awful pattern of hiding the truth, of burying the papers, of paying off the media to claim that everything's just A-okay in communist Canada, right? It's not. It's clearly not. But I think that this battle, this specific battle, taking the Speaker to court, may blow up in the Liberals' faces, but it may not. It may not. It'll depend on how the media deals with it. But let's remember what's at stake here. A reminder that Canada is a parliamentary democracy where the will of the parliament is supreme. What Trudeau is trying to do is simply wrong. This is a global editorial. Justin Trudeau is prime minister, not president. There's a big difference. And I want to just kind of go through the structure that I'm referring to that I think is currently on hold. This is highlighted in the Globe editorial here. It says Canada has had elected assemblies since long before there was a Canada. Nova Scotia got its first elected assembly in 1758, more than a century before Confederation. Upper and Lower Canada, the future Ontario and Quebec, got theirs in 1791, but the powers of those early parliaments were minimal. The government in the form of a governor appointed by the Crown didn't answer to the elected body. Early 19th century Canada did not have responsible government. Governments were responsible to the imperial government in London, or to themselves, but not to the Parliament of the people. The fight to change this is one of the foundational acts of modern Canada. Like so many things about this country, it happened not through violent American-style revolution, but through gradual evolution. For more than a century and a half, a Canadian government has been a thing that rises up from the majority of the elected House of Commons. It's the same in each province. To govern, it must have the confidence of the legislature. Its boss is Parliament.